At Mantis University, our primary goal is to teach you about praying mantis care and breeding. Basically, what they need and how to make more of them. I'm passionate about these topics, yeah, but that passion truly pales in comparison to how I feel when I remember that these animals aren't just puzzles to solve, but animals. They don't just function, they live lives. And if you want to get the fullest experience from keeping mantises, you must understand the ways that these creatures want to rest, to travel, to hunt, interact, and more. You must journey at least a little into the mind of the mantis. And that's why today's class is the first installment in a series we will return to again and again. Mantis Behavior 101. Mantodia is an order with massively diverse forms, but long overlooked diversity in behavior. I've read many times sentences which say something like, the praying mantises are all solitary ambush predators, attempting to sum up the whole group in a neat package. And while there are some very important commonalities between all mantises, we would be remiss not to say, as an emphatic disclaimer, that mantis behavior varies greatly between species. A keeper should not be surprised when something that has worked for one species falls flat for another. Today, we'll be focusing on the core elements of a mantis's daily rhythm, how it uses its habitat, and its interactions with other mantises. If you've kept a mantis for even a short amount of time, you've probably noticed that they spend the majority of their time sitting still. A content mantis will sit stationary for hours at a time. I keep several species which, even if I leave the doors to their enclosures open, will remain on their favored perches for days without going out to explore. To us humans, this kind of sedentary behavior is unfathomable. Who would want to sit in the same place all day? Am I a mantis? Sitting still is pretty lame from our perspective, but its importance to the mantis really drives home this core message. Almost every mantis behavior is related to their survival in a dangerous and unpredictable wild habitat. Mantises are not known to play and only rarely exhibit exploration and curiosity toward things that aren't beneficial to their survival. In nature, what do you think would happen to a mantis who gets bored on its perch and decides to wander around and mess with stuff? Even if it manages to avoid birds, lizards, cats, spiders, or any number of other carnivores during these adventures, the camouflage, which helps it ambush prey, will be rendered completely useless. An animal's camouflage is dependent on it sitting still, but also it sitting in the right spot. And most mantises have spent millennia evolving specialized characteristics to fit in. You can often predict the type of habitat a mantis lives in based on its appearance. Flat, bark-like species run along tree trunks. Narrow, long-bodied species clamber through grasses, things like that. The majority of mantises do live on plants, and they're naturally inclined to travel upward. Once it reaches a suitable place, it will rest there in a neutral pose from which it can easily transition into prey capturing or defensive behavior. In most mantises, this is also upside down, which is both relaxing for the thin legs and assists in holding prey in open air, where it can't grab onto anything to try to drag itself away. Some mantises are so dedicated to this lifestyle that they're reluctant to feed unless they're upside down. Although mantises might stay on profitable perches for days at a time, studies have found that the hungrier they get, the more active they become. A satiated mantis may wait until its prey comes very close to it, or pass up undesirable food altogether. But a starving mantis is more likely to take risks with new foraging sites, or actively confronting more dangerous prey. Fortunately, mantises do learn which sites are effective and which are not, and have even been observed returning to places where they've caught prey before. Like many other animals, at least some wild mantises develop a home range, which might be a section of one tree or an entire backyard. It will spend the majority of its time moving between areas in its home range, which might include rich hunting grounds, dense foliage in which to rest or retreat from bad weather, sturdy perches to molt from, and, for females, suitable sites to lay eggs. Adult males often leave the area they lived in as a nymph, spending their whole mature lives traveling in search of as many females as possible. Speaking of searching for females, you're probably already aware of the reason a wild mantis can never truly trust another mantis. In fact, they divide all other small creatures into two categories: food and not food. Larger creatures are sorted into two other categories: threat and not threat. When a mantis begins its life as a tiny hatchling, it quickly learns that it is on its own. Even a misstep around another baby could result in its own brutal end. A mantis will do everything it can to hide or escape from those creatures which are threats, and it has no instincts to seek out any other living things for comfort, attention, or mentorship. Because, again, if you're a wild mantis, taking just a bit too long to think about whether you should defend yourself or not may be the last decision you ever try to make. When we keep mantises as pets, however, some of these survival instincts can be suppressed by learning. One of the simplest types of learning is habituation, in which an animal stops reacting to something that it encounters frequently. So when your pet mantis gazes into your eyes with an air of curiosity, it may be demonstrating that it's seen you often enough to not be afraid. Captive mantises, which are habituated enough, might regularly approach people, anticipate feedings, and show more outgoing behavior than wild ones can afford to. Still, no amount of habituation will fundamentally change the mantis's innate desire to just sit still and exist most of the time. What I've been alluding to here is that mantises are among the most solitary of all animal groups. No known mantises live together or even cooperate to accomplish goals in the wild. However, there are two situations in which having social behavior is very helpful: diffusing a conflict and negotiating mating. If one mantis attempts to prey on another, it is not only removing a potential relative or mating partner from the gene pool, but it could also easily be hurt or killed by the mantis it attacks. Therefore, many behaviors have appeared to help mantises communicate to conspecifics: "I am another mantis. You'd better leave me alone." These behaviors often involve showing off their primary weapons, the forelegs, with boxing motions or extending and waving those claws. Often a displaying mantis will expand its abdomen and stand up tall, raising its thorax vertically to show off the bright colors on its underside or between its segments. The movements it makes when threatening another mantis are different from the generalized threat displays given to other, usually much larger predators. And very often the outcome from such a display is both animals turning around and going their separate ways. Communication can also precede courtship, and usually involves displaying in some of the same ways we just discussed. Often, a male mantis will take a mating opportunity without any courtship if he has the chance. But if he's been spotted by the female, he will immediately raise his abdomen up as if to say, "Wait, don't eat me. At least, not until you've had this." This kind of perception is one benefit of mantises' incredible eyesight. They're capable of seeing in such detail that they can discern when another mantis is looking at them, an ability out of reach of most insects. The exact courtship routines vary between species, but also individuals, with some males trying to court almost every time, while others will do so only if necessary. Each species also possesses a range of possible courtship behaviors, but a male rarely employs all of them in any single encounter with a mate. Earlier, I mentioned that no known mantises stay together, and in fact it's quite unlikely for a male to see any specific female more than once. This means that any kind of pair bonding behavior is extremely unlikely to exist. However, there are a very few mantises who will tolerate the boundary-breaking presence of others for days at a time. Those species who defend not only their eggs, but also their hatchlings. Stenophila lobivertex, the Peruvian dragon, is one of the only mantises like this in the hobby. Exactly what a female Stenophila thinks about her babies is impossible to say, but she will allow them to perch next to her, and even all over her, for up to a couple days after hatching. If this felt like a lot, well, we're just getting started. There are so many dimensions to mantis behavior, and I can't wait to go over more with you. I hope you'll sign up for Mantis Behavior 102. We've put a lot of exciting stuff in that class. It's going to be all about hunting behavior and prey capture, some real National Geographic sorts of stuff. See you then.